Hey, how you doing? I'm Brian. I'm with Castle's Real Estate. I am making my second video, and today is a very interesting day because of the GDP data that came out that basically declared that we have been in a recession for the past 6 months, and I mean January through the end of June. So with that, technically we could not be in a recession right now. Technically, the media would be stating that correctly because we'd be talking about right now. As of right now, we could not be in a recession. That is possible, but we're not going to know for another 6 months from now. So you can't necessarily make that judgment. You got to also understand that the data came from January through the end of June, and it's the end of July. So we're not going to see the data until a month after. But the last 6 months, or the previous 6 months, should I say, January through the end of June, we were in a recession. And of course, the media is going to put the little spin on it and be like, no, technically it doesn't define a recession. And it's like BS. That is absolute BS. That is not true. We were definitely in a recession. They had 2 quarters negative growth. That is a recession. So don't believe what the media is saying. Of course, and also they're trying to put the spin on the housing market, saying mortgage applications are going down, that the housing prices are coming down. Well, yeah, we're actually coming back to normal with the real estate. The real estate market is not going to crash like you think it is. And you can't compare the real estate market to the stock market. The stock market is completely different. I mean, you can have bad news in the stock market and all of a sudden everything just plunges. Doesn't necessarily work that way in the stock or in the real estate market. So you got to understand that and just realize that there's a lot of news out there that's just not true, or just like is only partly factual. And the only thing that I could say is that technically we could not be in a recession right now. That could technically be the deal, but is most likely not the deal. But we're not going to know for another 6 months. It's just they're trying to put their spin on it for political reasons, whatever. It's if it's the news that's politically slanted, depending on what side you're on. And I'm not going to get into politics, but I just basically say that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to deny it, or you have certain economists that are trying to deny it. And it's just like, well, if you want to get all technical about it, we're talking about the last 6 months. We're not talking about right this second. So there's a lot of things that are putting different spins on it. And you got to also remember that 2008 was a very different time. So please don't freak out. Don't panic about thinking that the price of your value, or the price of your home, or the value of your home is going to significantly drop. 2008 was very different. That kind of thing had happened once in the previous 100 years. So that didn't necessarily happen. That's not necessarily going to happen again. And the thing is, like I said, the pricing, or the stock market, or the housing market, had already dropped before they even declared a recession, and that hasn't happened yet. It's just what you're seeing now is a slowdown in the housing market because everything was so ridiculously high. There was a ridiculously low inventory, and on top of that, with the low inventory, that there was a moratorium that kept people from having foreclosures. So people were allowed to keep their home even though they weren't making payments on their home because there was a moratorium, meaning that they weren't allowed to actually have homes foreclosed on. Now, of course, that's going to come back to normal because that can't last forever. And I think they lifted it. I can't remember how long ago, but they lifted that. So now foreclosures are slowly going to go back up. But the foreclosure rate is a lot lower, or the foreclosure numbers are a lot lower than they were back in 2008. The inventory is a lot lower than 2008. And you got to also remember with the institutional buying, there's a lot more institutions that are buying today that were buying in 2008. Now, there's certain areas of the country where the market is really starting to drop, and those areas have had a lot of problems with high crime, with the lockdowns, the political decisions the leaders have made there that basically kind of force people to do what they want. And I mean, if you look at California, which has been going on, it's been going on for quite some time, but they've been trying to have everyone switch to electric vehicles. They're trying to force everybody to have lawnmowers and tractors and stuff like that run off of electric energy. And of course, that's very expensive, and just the high taxes in general, plus the high cost of living, it's just made it a very hard place to live if you don't have a lot of money. And so unfortunately, that has changed a lot of the outcome, or has changed a lot of the real estate there. The real estate there, I mean, it's still going to remain high because it is California, but at the same time, it's going to drop. And then if you look at places like Portland, or if you look at places like Seattle or New York City, people are moving out of there in droves because they're sick and tired of the political leaders there that are making all these rules that are basically just kind of driving people out of there. And so, yeah, the real estate market's going to drop there because people are moving out, and more people are moving out than people are moving in. So also, a lot of these people are moving down to Florida. So that actually has benefited Florida quite a bit because a lot of people are moving here. So that's going to kind of keep the price steady in Florida. But, I mean, in general, though, with the housing market, unless you're living in Portland, or if you're living in Seattle, or if you're living in Los Angeles or San Francisco, you're going to see a little bit of a drop. You're going to see a drop here in Florida, but it's not going to be, as bad as they're trying to say it's going to be. Or you can't go and basically think that everything's just going to drop just because the economic activity has dropped as far as the GDP or the fact that they're declaring a recession. It doesn't necessarily work that way. And there's no reason to panic. And also, you got to remember the data came from the past 6 months. It's not actually stating right now. We're not even going to know about the data right now until 6 months from now. So, or whether or not we're in a recession, or at least we're not going to know about next quarter until, I guess, September or October, around that time. So you can't really, worry or freak out about that, because even with the mortgage rates going up, because the Federal Reserve is raising rates, so that means that that they're raising rates for any time you're borrowing money, especially mortgage rates, that that doesn't necessarily constitute a drop in house prices, and it hasn't in the past. It's never really been a true indicator. And then also the price of lumber has gone significantly down. That doesn't necessarily mean that the pricing of houses, or the house prices, are going to drop, or are going to drop significantly to the point that it's going to really affect the value of your home. It's coming back to normal, and we had an abnormally large growth, so we're just kind of coming back to reality, basically. If you were able to sell your home maybe 6 months ago, you probably got a ridiculously high price or got a great profit off your home because it was elevated. But that's just kind of come back to normal. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to drop down significantly to the point you're going to lose money or have a short sell in a home, and meaning that you're going to sell the home for less than what you're able, or less than the value, or less than the mortgage you have on the home, in order to help your financial situation. So, short sales are actually down a lot more than they were in 2008. Foreclosures are down a lot more. And also, if you look at the unemployment rate was a lot higher in 2008 than it is now. So there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to freak out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that just because the media is trying to put out, or trying to say that the housing market could crash, doesn't mean it's going to. It's just news. It's just media. They are paid to say certain things at certain times. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So I just want to make it clear that you can't freak out about that. And, it's still a good time to buy. It's still a good time to sell. Real estate is the best investment, and you should stick with that. Don't believe everything that you hear or see, and then you can't believe everyone's speculation. It's just a speculation. And granted, I could be wrong on my quote-unquote speculation, but I have a little more knowledge. I have a little more intel. I have a little more information when it comes to what's going on in the real estate business. Granted, I'm in Florida, where the market's really good. Like I said, unless you're in an area that's really rough, or has been ridden with crime, or the crime rate has increased significantly, you should not have that problem. So there's just no reason to freak out. There's no reason to panic. There's no reason to lose it, because it's just speculation, and things change all the time. And technically, we could be moving out of a recession. Technically, the shortest amount of time the recession has lasted is 6 months. I mean, quote by the definition. But, there's no reason to worry. It's just, these are very different times. And like I said, with the Federal Reserve, and I've been picking on the Federal Reserve, is that the Federal Reserve was pumping a crazy amount of money into the stock market there, or the bond market, which had the stock market grow out of control. and the rates were very low. So as a result, mortgage rates were very low. So a lot of people were financing houses for a lot lower than they normally were. Even with the high prices, if you look at interest rates over a long period of time, if interest rates are super, super, super low, that is going to give you a deal on the house you're buying. But also with the institutional buying, you got to remember, so the institutions have a little more information than the average person. They have a little more information than just retail. So they know that, if they're buying in, that there's most likely not going to be a crash, because they wouldn't be buying on this property at a much higher rate than they have in the past if they were expecting it to crash. Now, of course, I could be wrong. It could totally tumble, but I'm just not seeing that. And like I said, there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to freak out. And you just gotta be smart with your money. And that's really what it comes down to. You gotta be smart with your money. Just think about what you're doing. If it really comes down to hanging out with the right people, or just cutting back, or just not going out, just to be smart about it, do that. And I'm not saying totally restrain your lights to the point you're miserable, but just use your head. Just be smart about it. And don't get caught up in what the media says, because the media is just the media. They're going to say whatever they got to say to get ratings, and that's all they really care about. So you got to understand that, and just understand that they're more or less there to present an agenda, because most media is politically slanted. We all know that. So just understand that. So I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching my video. I look forward to continuously making videos on this channel, and hopefully get an audience, and hopefully get some people that really understand me and just kind of can relate to what I'm going through, or what's going on in my life, because I'm a pretty I'd say pretty honest person. I don't like to lie. I don't like to BS. I don't like to beat around the bush. I'm a very honest person, and I'm going to stick to that. So again, thank you for listening. If you can please like, subscribe, and share my video or videos, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.